In the beginning of the 18th century, the world was starting to become rather small to Europeans. They already colonized and mapped all continents, making profits of these resources. But some powerful kingdoms remained untouched, secretly hiding behind the walls of their empire. It is the case in the extreme east, where China stays mysterious for foreigners. But how did China, a discreet, self-sufficient country, get engaged in a war with the biggest power of that time?
For Great Britain and Europeans in general, China was presenting plenty of resources. Its market was already recognized for its rarity. The long journey of the Silk Roads and the very small amount of goods allowed to be traded made Oriental products even more expensive. But Great Britain was desperate for Chinese silk, porcelain, and especially tea.
First, they tried to trade like usual, peacefully. But soon, they realized China was interested in no goods they had to offer, except for sterling silver. They were asking for an astronomical amount of metal in exchange for a ludicrous amount of Asian goods. This exchange was absolutely not profitable to the Europeans, and considering that China was not ready to offer another trade, they decided to invade the country in order to apply their rules.
Looking for solutions to assure their win in the war, the British turned to India where they could easily buy opium. They started to diffuse this relaxing and highly addictive drug into China, making the army unable to fight and the population dependent on British importations. Of course, the Chinese king, wanting to fight against this compelling and novice product, completely stopped any form of trade with the Europeans. In order to win back their right to exploit Chinese goods, the British attacked the Eastern Empire.
The First Opium War lasted from 1839 to 1842. At the end of the war, China was defeated by the Royal Navy and had to open up 5 ports, especially made for trade with the British, in Shanghai, Ningbo, Fuzhou, Amoy, and Canton. Hong Kong would also be given to the English conquerors. China was also in great debt to Europeans and had to pay for damages in the marine, as well as for the opium they had destroyed.
However, the British were still not satisfied by the tribute that had been paid to them and started another war. The Second Opium War lasted from 1856 to 1860. Joined by France, Great Britain won the war again, leaving the country devastated, crippled with even more debts. Opium was also legalized in the country, and other ports were opened just for European trade. Finally, the defeat was especially shameful for the Qing dynasty, who had lost most of its powers as well as its land.
The weakness of the crown and the misery caused by wars led the population to rebel in the course of a civil war. The Taiping Rebellion indeed lasted from 1850 to 1865 as people fought for a better government that would allow the addictive opium. Not only did the emperor have to fight against civilians to restore order, but he also had to send forces against Japan, who wanted to take advantage of the chaos in the Chinese marine to invade China by sea. The goal was also to show Europeans Japan was ready to protect itself from any attacks.
The Opium Wars marked the start of decades of unequal treaties between China and foreign powers. Europeans were reassured in their marine powers and continued to establish their supremacy in all oceans. This painful fail still remains in China's memory to this day, probably inspiring the country to become the new marine superpower, the Thalasocrator.